It's my understanding that African voodoo is like some of the craziest, strongest magic.
No, it is not. You have
dangerous.
to understand, it is Tantra. It is Tantra, Siddha Tantra. It is originally supposed to be knowledge of creation. So Siddha Tantra is knowledge of creation. It's also knowledge of the human body, of a human nervous system. It's a knowledge of creation, including the human body. The problem is that through the down cycle, it got degraded, corrupted, and people started using this knowledge of nadis, of these nervous system and channels and energy channels, to hurt somebody, to inflict pain, to manipulate the reality. And yet they're not masters. They are not masters, but they proclaim themselves as such because they do malefic actions. Because to harm somebody, to send them negative energy is very easy in this day and age, because the whole realm is supporting you. The whole realm is distorted towards negative and lower frequency. So negative in the sense of harmful, evil, based on ignorance and self-service, self-gratification, empowerment of this little ego, because nobody, no master, no higher being will ever attack or attempt to manipulate the reality or any other being, because higher beings respect free will. They respect the natural organic way of evolution, development, and the free will and the soul choice of other beings. Those people who say they're Tantra masters and yet they hurt other people, they try to manipulate the reality for the benefit of someone against someone else, or they assume superior, inferior position. It already shows they're not masters, because master lives in equanimity, in balance, lives beyond this human realm, mostly not interfering with it. Yes, masters can transmit knowledge, masters continuously evolving themselves and learning through life. Masters can support other people, provided these people are grateful and humble enough, and they are willing to heal themselves. So in this case, there will be some kind of a support, but otherwise, true Tantra masters do not interfere. Now, whatever we know as spirituality, it's all based on demonic forms of spirituality, in the core of which is ego, self-fulfillment in a materialistic way, self-validation, kind of fooling people in the name of spirituality or trying to supposedly help someone. Truly evolved masters, light beings know that there's no one to help. They never interfere with human realm. They never help, because they know everyone is living their own karma. Everyone is, that karma is their body, is a residue, is the way the energy flows in the energy body, is whatever burdens, whatever afflictions they have, they're facing their shadows in this day and age. So they don't interfere. They don't help. Half-baked masters, they think they help because they're still traumatized beings. They come from their, unresolved trauma. So they feel others and they start having this kind of emotional compassion. Emotional compassion is based on ignorance, because the person who feels that compassion does not see the reality, the higher reality of how these people came to be in that miserable condition. Or maybe they're paying a karmic debt, and everything is right. Whatever's happening in everyone's life is always right. There's no way that we should assume such a superior position where we should interfere with anyone's life. We should let each and everyone live. Live and let live. This is the main principle of highly evolved masters. They do not look at other people's gardens. They are not trying to, recruit anyone to follow them. They are just sharing their truth in a very selfless and kind of detached manner, because they don't need anything from this projected reality. Period.
That's my understanding, as like the fundamental rule is ahimsa, or non-violence, non-interference.
You can't be potentially non-interfering and non-violent if you're still unhealed. because you will still antagonize. Ego means you antagonize with the reality, with the projection. You do not realize the projection is a projection. The trauma means you do not understand that the projection is the projection. There is me and the reality. This is ignorance. And out of this ignorance comes all the other forms of limited, whether spirituality or understanding of reality or life. Because when the person is gained clarity, let's not call it enlightenment, when the person gained clarity about reality and themselves being in that reality, they let go, they become selfless, they become humble because they understand the magnificence of creation. That magnificence humbles them down. And so they understand that as long as they antagonize with reality, they are acting out of their limited self or ego. So as long as it's there, there is a seed of trauma, unhealed, unresolved trauma. The moment they understand and surrender, they exist within this individual body, and yet their perception expands beyond the individuality. That's how they evolve and understand. They start facing the collective, which is even more challenging, because now they face that they are not just them by themselves. They are part of their bloodlines, their ancestry. They are a part of the collective, and they are to deal with that collective residue as well. They refine the links with this collective residue within themselves. So they have to refine themselves so that there are no links anymore with the collective residue or collective corruption. And this way, they become intact. They become self-protected. They realize what self-born knowledge is. And so this way, they continue kind of on a different level. They no longer antagonize with the reality. They no longer perceive the reality as a threat. They understand that to protect oneself means to remain focused, balanced, in equanimity, and pure. And that is purity, which is you are not having unconscious links with the projected reality, unhealthy connections with to the projected reality. You are not establishing a false sense of self through the projected reality, trying to validate yourself through the projected reality, or establish yourself in a certain form with a certain tag, or in a certain position in this projected reality. Because you, as a being, as a spirit, you have no position in the projected reality. You're all over. The whole projected reality is a result of your existence as a spiritual being. So you understand that whatever you experience on an individual level is just the emanation, the projection. So you become responsible for your existence. You stop being a victim. You stop trying to save anyone. You stop antagonizing and being aggressive to the projected reality, because you assume the position, not even a position, but you perceive that everything emanates from you. And if you have shadows, if you have certain unresolved issues within and some kind of a falsehood or false sense of self, you just look within and deal with it, instead of looking outside at other people's, actions, or judging them, or comparing yourself, or envying, or trying to, influence or control them, because you understand that all that has no meaning for your higher being, for your higher evolution. And your focus is on that higher being and evolution, rather than on the projected reality that constantly needs your energy, your time, your attention. You understand that this reality in this day and age is based on energetic vampirism. Every little element within this projected reality requires your energy, and thus time. You're wasting your life, because it's time, onto these transitory things. That's why all the evolved masters said that even though this projected reality is attractive, it has a lot of interesting things to offer. It is illusion, because in its essence, without your conscious focus and attention, it doesn't exist. It's you who supports this theatrical show. And the evolved being, the being who gained clarity, understood that, because they experienced yoga. Yoga means your focus turned within, away from the projected reality. That's why you perceive the essence. You awaken to that essence. And now, through that essence, you perceive the reality differently, or you start perceiving, because you still have to go through the refinement process. So you still have to observe all these, shadows of yours. That's why I continuously say the awakening doesn't mean anything, because you have to go through the transformation. You have to go through refinement, which is very painful, because you are facing the collective residue, emotional thought residue, all these ideologies that possess us, this energy within the consciousness that tends to divide and fragment. That's what I meant by demonic energy. Demonic tendency within consciousness is that tendency that keeps on dividing and fragmenting. Is it good? Is it bad? None. It is what it is. If you want to understand a more wholesome perspective of reality, you have to start unifying and balancing the dispersion with unity, kind of staying in balance rather than going into extremes. That's the higher path of knowledge. All the pieces of spiritual knowledge speak about one and the same thing: balance, equanimity. That is, because to go into extremes is easier than to keep both extremes in balance. And you can keep it when you don't think, when you don't judge, when you are not in a projected mode, when you are absorbed. In other words, in yoga, you are yoga. Then you understand naturally what is absorption. You don't need to practice anything. Just be, flow with life, observe your emotions, observe your tendencies. Do not guilt trip yourself if you do something. Okay, today you like it. Okay, have it. Tomorrow you see the impact. Is it positive? Is it negative? Or maybe in 10 years you see the impact. Then you learn, because your body will tell you whether that was beneficial or not. But there is nothing right or wrong in this world. You can experience whatever you want, but you have to also understand that whatever we experience has a consequence, because we connect to this experience. That's why it has consequence. Or it has a draining effect, because the body is not just the bodily experience. It is the experience of the mind. Because when you smoke, for example, your body inhales smoke. Yes, it has a certain effect on the body. But the reason is that somewhere, somewhat, you don't have a complete or wholesome sense of self. So you connected the sense of self to this process of smoking, for example. And when you do this, you feel complete. It means you left that sense of self with that process. So it's not about the process. The process has whatever effect it has on the body. Okay, it fills your lungs with black tar or whatever, smoke. It will have a detrimental effect on your body. But the aging process happens primarily because of the mind kind of being all over the place within the projected reality. It doesn't have a wholesome sense of self. It is projected, it is dispersed. It is attached to cigarettes, attached to sugar, attached to, there's nothing wrong with cigarettes and sugar. You want to do it, do it. The problem is with the mind and the way it empowers certain elements. That's how it disempowers itself, through empowering the aspects or the elements of the projected reality. So when we empower other people's emotions, we validate them, we look at them, we connect to them through this kind of interaction, especially through eyes. That's why people know about evil eye. It's not just about the eyes, it's because through eyes we transmit. Through eyes we connect our minds or our consciousness to the projected reality, to different elements. These other elements, they also are connected to something else within the projected reality. So we create links with their existence, with their clouds, with their emotional residue. And sometimes people deliberately have this kind of negative transmission through their minds, through their eyes. So all of these religious practices were born out of these observations. So the reason why these restrictions were put into place were not explained. Okay, you can't do this, you can't, it is true, but why? Why? The reason is because mind and consciousness tend to easily, especially in this day and age, attach the sense of self to the elements of the projected reality. That's why the religions started restricting, but restricting alone does not cut off the root. The mind is still connected with the projected reality. The mind is still dreaming, craving, wanting. Even if you cut off that physical aspect, the mind still has much more freedom than the body. And the mind is still attached. So it doesn't really matter what you do physically. As long as the mind is in bondage, the mind consciousness are in possession of the collective clouds or clusters of consciousness, different ideologies, belief systems, emotional thought clusters. There is no such a thing as spiritual liberation. There is no such a thing as transcendence or spiritual evolution, unfortunately, because these clouds have to be dissolved within the individual consciousness. And first of all, one has to unbind oneself, dissolve the links with these clouds or demonic clusters, you may say. Demonic again means that they lead us to dispersion of consciousness further and further into the matter, within the projected reality. But such dispersion is not sustainable. That's why there is a tendency to recruit, to draw attention, to yell, look at me, give me energy, give me time. Because all of these transitory elements are valid only when they are supported by the collective consciousness. The collective consciousness consists of individual consciousnesses. And that's why every consciousness participates if they want so, or if their will was manipulated into this participation. And if people do not realize they forever remain bound to these different clusters of ideologies, belief system, philosophies, concepts, etc., etc. Or they are bound to their relatives, bloodlines, emotional and thought residue. And so when we are truly on a true spiritual path, which is one and the same for all, we are to face these things. And to face these things will take thousands of years from now on. It doesn't matter how long, but this is the truth. So all these people who scream about enlightenment or spiritual whatever achievements, they are but fools. They are but in possession of some ideologies or some limited forms of spirituality. Because there's no healing, there's no evolution without this understanding. Yes, you can delude yourself for as long as it's valid for you, but we're speaking about the reality. We're not speaking about delusion, hallucination, and speculation. People can hide behind scriptural knowledge, they can hide behind books. Real knowledge is beyond books, beyond scriptures. It is the transmission of the higher being. If one is not connected to that higher being within oneself, one can never register higher knowledge, higher frequency, or understand the source of this knowledge within this projected reality. They will not even notice this. They will not come across. Because whatever we experience in the projected reality is the longing of our being. Whatever experience we have, whether the experience of material objects or some emotional desires or anything we experience, that's the craving of our soul. We came with this residue to experience this, whatever we have to experience. But if we speak about spiritual evolution, we have to understand we can experience whatever we want in a detached manner. But after all, if we speak about spiritual liberation, we have to dissolve all the ties to the collective residue of the past and this cycles. So if we understand this, then we are on the right path, because the right path is not defined by any human. The right path is the path of the recognition of the higher frequency within oneself, within the collective, within the existence. And this frequency does not have any name. You may call it God, you may call it Allah, you may call it, Brahma. You can call it whatever you want. Om. It is what it is. Awareness. The name doesn't matter. What matters is you either are connected or you are not. You either that or you are not. You either have restored the link with that, which is very rare still, or you haven't. Whether you call it this way or that way, where you dress up this way or that way, has absolutely no meaning for the higher being. The higher being lives beyond any human notions or judgments, any human rules or projections. And that's why the higher being cannot be understood by a limited and rigid human mind, which is possessed by the, clouds of the corruption of the past eras or the down cycle. You have to reconnect to the higher frequency so that you can break through the clouds of this residue and kind of at least recognize that these are the clouds and this is the higher frequency, the inexhaustible source. It's called in yoga or in different Sanskrit writings, it's called viveka, discernment. This discernment is impossible without awakening to this high frequency, without experiencing yoga in your own vessel or through your own embodiment. All the other notions of spirituality are but bogus, theories, someone else's speculation, imagination, wannabe this, wannabe that. Spirituality is never but wannabe. Nobody wants to be a clown of the projection. Nobody wants to be a king of the projection. Nobody wants to be anyone within the projection. That being who has understood the existence of the higher frequency within them, they have tuned to it, they have gained clarity and refinement through that. They will never look for anything within the projected reality. They can enjoy the projected reality, but they will never, create a sense of self through that reality. They will never think that that reality is the reality. They will know it's a projection. And I can stay there as long as I want, but it is still projection. You can enjoy this projection. If you do not understand it, you can suffer through this projection as well. But after all, it is doomed to, dissolution, because it has energy only as long as it's supported by all the other minds. The moment all the other minds and consciousnesses, individual ones, dissolve, this reality, this projection will dissolve too.
As far as voodoo, like my understanding is that to hurt someone else is to hurt yourself if there's no separation or within self, capital S, self.
We cannot hurt others if we are not hurt ourselves. It's the main principle. That's why all the higher masters said, as above, so below. Because if you have that unresolved trauma within, you will, or feeling of I'm nothing, I'm empty, narcissism, egotism, right? You will act out of that. You will hurt without wishing or wanting to hurt. You will look for power from the outside because you cannot perceive that power within. In other words, you will try to pull the matter, the projection, into yourself, trying to connect your empty sense of self with this projected reality. Trying to empower this projected reality with your non-existent sense of self, and yet codependent on this reality. because supposedly your non-existent self existence depends on this supposedly fake reality. And so it's a paradox, but that's how the majority of people live. It's called falsehood, ignorance. Ignorance is that your sense of self, instead of being wholesome within, it remains dispersed with different elements of reality on a scale of priorities, you know. This is more important than that. There's comparison. One is inferior and the other is superior. When you understand it's emanation, it's illusion, everything is just one and the same. You entertain every element of reality for a time being. Then you withdraw your conscious power again within. This is the way to restore your true sense of power, where you don't need to depend on other people's validations, acceptance, approvals, because you perceive that power, and this power is like a vibration of bliss and contentment and equanimity. You perceive it within. Why would you need anyone else or anything else to validate you or define? Through that connection, you grow further. You grow. Growing means you grow in humility. You grow in gratitude. You grow in equanimity. You because of that, you gain access to higher forms of knowledge, which require that frequency of humility, true unconditional love. Because with that frequency is like a natural key. It unlocks the treasures of the higher being, which is knowledge. You cannot fake it. You can delude people, fool people, but you cannot delude frequency, consciousness, because it's beyond the limited human existence. You can manipulate, matter on this projected level, but that is no mastery. It's just a joke. And yet people again connect the sense of themselves with this manipulation, the manipulation of different, aspects of this projected reality, feeling some sort of power. Okay, you hurt someone. Where is power? To hurt someone doesn't require power. To heal, to restore balance, requires power, time, and dedication. That's why masters, they're not jokers. They are truly dedicated beings, and they spend much more time on self-development rather than those who master certain tricks and magic to hurt people or to gain some temporary fame by hurting other people, imposing disease on them, or inflicting some kind of emotional or mental or physical pains, or disturbing their relationships or interfering with their lives. If one interferes, they're not masters. They're in bondage of those with whom they interfere. Those who make pacts with different entities of the subtle realm think they control these entities, think they, bail this or bind these spirits, but yet they submit their will and are actually in control of these spirits and these entities, because eventually their spiritual essence will be consumed by these entities. They cut themselves off the spiritual evolution period. They choose to become masters of the illusionary matter and lose their chance for real evolution. They contribute to the further dispersion of the collective. Dispersion means loss of energy through this process of division. Someone is special, someone is this, someone is that. How does it matter? It's all transitory. So they lose out on the immortal essence. The immortal essence is the being, is observing everything in a wholesome way, not in a dividing or judgmental way, because that is of limited perception. So if you observe, if you can maintain that wholesomeness and equanimity and observe everything in this kind of a wholesome way, you're blessed.
About what you were just saying, yeah, that's my understanding, is that voodoo and black magic will always be off the mark because it's based on violence and manipulating the reality illusion.
The original voodoo was, it's all just one and the same knowledge of creation. It was not supposed to have at its core harmful effects. Or, you understand, it's like fire. Can you say that fire is negative or positive? It depends on how people apply it, and it depends on the conscious level of these people. So, for example, some people use fire to damage other people, to harm them, and some people use fire to warm up their houses. So the same goes with knowledge of creation. It's a knowledge of, you know, the elements of creation and the subtle elements of creation and the knowledge of consciousness and so on. Again, what people made of it in this day and age matters, because people, you know, destroyed the original meaning because they pushed the sciences to serve their limited human existence. They did not preserve the essence of the, or rarely they did preserve the essence of all of these teachings. All they did was they, you know, turned this kind of to serve them, to serve their needs. And because the consciousness degraded, the needs kind of became more primitive. And so the entire science kind of turned out to serve the negative needs, the negative affirmations. I'm not saying those people don't use it also for blessing or for healing others. A lot of these healers are still, you know, working there in tribes and helping maybe their tribemen to heal and improve somehow. But I'm just saying on a larger scale, on a collective scale, it all just contains the seed of corruption. All these religions, all these philosophies, they became degraded because they became bound to the human existence, to the bodily existence. None of these sciences were ever about human bodily existence. Bodily existence was only like one part of the entire existence. But now the focus is all on the body, bodily needs, bodily wants, monetary system. It was never like that from the start. From the start, these sciences were about you know, subtler aspects of consciousness, creation, other dimensions. But as we degraded, we lost our sight or perception of those dimensions. And so all our spirituality degraded to the limited forms, bound to the physical form, to the existence of the physical form. That's what, anyways.